What's up, guys? Welcome to another Beyond All Reason on the Fly Replay Analysis. I am your host, Zateo, and today we're going to be looking at Bleppers as they play strong seaside on Supreme Isthmus. Let's get into it. That player view on, unpause. Player view. Oh, there we go. There we go. Alright, we got that darkness for line of sight. Alright, Bleppers, how do you do here? Alright, starting with what looks like a 3-mex opener. Pretty standard procedure. Couple of wins. I will note really quickly that I think, so if you do this normally, you can stall for a slight second with if you do a wind turbine after 3 metal, but I think the 3 mexes are far enough away that you were able to rack up enough energy to build that wind turbine, so that looks fine. Just wanted to point that out real quick. So you're gaining a bit of energy and you're walking to the sea and placing down one of those shipyards. Looks good so far. Looks like then there's a wind or a tidal generator after that. I feel like you're a little bit slow to add in the units on here, but that's being pretty nitpicky here. So let's see, it's pretty much starting with a scout and right into constructor. Commander going out to the beach to eat some of this reclaim here for a bit of energy. And then back to the sea to assist the shipyard. Alright. Slight stall on energy, but you correct that quickly with that tidal generator. Adding on mexes with that first constructor. Alright, now your commander's walking away to grab a mex over here. I feel like, yeah, it's good to get this mex, and it should be prioritized, so it's good that you're doing that, but at the same time, your energy is stalling right now. So I would recommend, maybe just walking right back here, a short distance to build a couple more wind turbines somewhere, and then moving on up there. Because you can't really use the metal if you're not, if you don't have enough energy for it. The other thing also to consider is right now your shipyard doesn't have any assistance, and a shipyard only has 165 build power. So I would actually recommend getting like a secondary constructor to assist it, and that can help you. That'll help the new ships coming out, and then by that time you might actually need a little bit more energy than that even. So you might even want to build a couple more wind turbines. Considering the wind's low, actually, you could get another tidal generator instead, or a couple of those. It's kind of like the choice is yours, but yeah, given the winds, that does actually make a little bit more sense. Just for the record, wind is better than tidal generators in terms of metal cost on this map. So it's good to have the wind, but of course the wind varies a lot. And to close that gap early on, tidal generators are quite nice. So that's what I would recommend, to boost out another constructor to assist the lab. And if you want to play greedy, I would even recommend boosting out 2 constructors so that you have one for the lab and then another one to start grabbing these mexes ASAP and start reaping from those benefits. And then you can have either this constructor or a different one that, like say, like the one that you put up here, could also just start like adding on a couple of extra tidal generators and stuff like that. Or you could, and then eventually you could use your commander for wind if you prefer to do the wind. It always gets a little bit interesting as, it's like, like even if you know that wind speed is a little bit better than tide in terms of cost, it's like, how do you even build the winds? It's a matter of like, well, my build power is mostly in the sea, so maybe it does make more sense to get more tide, and it becomes, this like weird thing to consider as you do this. But yeah, anyways, moving on. It looks like you're starting out with some frigates. Not a bad choice. It looks like you got that supporter just running around checking stuff out. Looks like you have it on patrol. That's a nice move to do. I don't see that very often. But yeah, just checking both places. I mean, why not? To see what's going on in both spots. There's always a possibility that, they start a shipyard and stuff, and you might see it a little bit late just because of the timing of when that supporter gets there, but still fine thing to do. You end up losing it to a commander, and it seems like they're probably grabbing these mexes with that commander. Pretty normal stuff so far. Let's see, commanders adding on those wind turbines now. Alright, so wind is quite nice right now. And yeah, this looks pretty good other than this is just not being assisted. And you do add on all the other mexes out here, so that's great as well. Having your frigates out here to block any commander attempts from getting up the hill is quite nice. It looks like they, well, I think that's, maybe it wasn't a building, maybe it was just a fighter. But either way, it looks like they are going for that, so I try to keep these guys nearby. Seeing frigates trying to kill fighters is quite something. Small little run by over here on purple. They take quite a bit of damage here. Looks like it was an amphibious push up here from purple, or from pink, I guess. Not purple. What am I talking about? I apparently don't know colors. So again, here wind dips down, and you start. You know, you're just so low on energy. I would definitely consider adding some tides here. Is this? Okay, you start 2 of these apparently. You know, of course, you're assisting only 1, so that's great. But yeah, I would highly recommend getting a bit more energy before that, just because wind did dip down a bit. Alright, so this looks like, yeah, there's 2 players over here on the islands, so unfortunately someone snuck by. But yeah, it is really nice to have your ships around here, or ships guarding, you know, the coast here, at least something to spot for that. Let's see, you do have a couple of radars over here, so I mean, you know, that's of course a great way to do that after, you know, when you get the chance to get your constructor out here. Unfortunately, yeah, so these radars are good. I'm glad that you got these radars for sure. You know, a lot of players neglect that. But there is a blind spot, and the blind spot is basically like, I hate when it does that. The blind spot is basically like this, and this is usually where players put their shipyard, is in this spot right here. You know, so you're not going to be able to actually see that given your radar placements. So, you know, personally, I think that's one of the more important things to see, for sure. So I would either scoot this one up a little bit, or scoot this one over a little bit, just to see, you know, that spot a little bit better. But then again, you know, it is nice to be able to see, you know, quite a bit. You know, it's good to see like the northern section too. It's good to see this bottom section. So I mean, I don't know if that means you want to place a 3rd radar or something like that, but either way, just knowing this spot I think is even more important, is all I'm saying. Alright. Start a bot lab. Again, energy is still kind of low, and wind is max, so it's not due to the wind being low. You're just a little bit short. So I mean, you are spending your energy, but yeah, just a touch short. Looks like you canceled that cruiser. Interesting. And your frigates are coming out here. You got a cruiser out here with them as well at this point, taking out stuff. Yeah, it's nice having that destroyer with it. I think I said cruiser by mistake, but yeah, it's a destroyer. Obviously, you're not on T2 yet. But yeah, having the capability to take out the mexes here, really nice. Also, you know, just destroyers have some extra range, so you can do things like sit over here and barrage this base a little bit to help out fronts. But yeah, very critically, I would say definitely get an eye on this, because you want to know what this player's up to. You know, being your basically your lane opponents in a way. You know, knowing that if they go for that, you can destroy it, and if they don't go for it, you need to plan for what they could possibly be doing instead. Usually, if they do something instead, it's either they're like teching up really hard, or they are going hover. You know, so just things to keep in mind. Of course, there's other options, like they could go air and just be like a secondary air player or something like that. But yeah, and then if they tech up, usually it's like a fast tech to like Marauders or something after they get like an Aphis or something. But yeah, all these things very important to know so that you can make informed decisions. But yeah, it looks like you got that T1 lab done. Kind of waiting to see what you do with it. I would like to see some more wins a little bit sooner. See, okay, so you got some destroyers coming out again. Okay, so you are doing this, nice. So yeah, having these guys here, very important, very good. You know, just a good way to utilize them since you don't have a C player to fight. Unfortunately, they're just kind of sitting there getting barraged. Yeah, being able to take out these mexes, take out the lab, like that's all great stuff. But yeah, it's just taking a lot of damage, unfortunately. I wouldn't mind a radar in this area, just so you can like actually see what you're hitting a little bit better. Front line's getting pushed back a little bit. Let's see, what are you doing with these guys? Alright, so you got a consort, you're adding on some winds. But yeah, I think you were just a little bit busy with your, you know, moving your ships around. To not, you know, you just didn't notice that these guys were idle for a minute. But yeah, given that's, you know, I mean, so usually either, you know, you beat C, or you're, you know, if you're fighting, you know, still fighting this player and didn't kill him off and they're, you know, contesting the C, you know, then what you're doing, I would say is pretty good, just building ships to destroy them with, you know. But since you don't have that player there, it's something that you need to be mindful of. While it's nice that, you know, you're doing this play of barraging this spot, and I think that's why you're building more destroyers. You know, that is an excellent play. I'm glad you're doing that for sure. But yeah, definitely keep an eye on this spot. Usually what people like to do once they beat C, or, you know, if it's uncontested, is they set up some like subs out here. You know, like I would say even 3 or 4 subs ish, and just like if they attempt to build C, then you know about it. They also act as spotters, so if like anything tries to go through, you know, any kind of amphibious vehicles or you know, hovercraft or amphibious play of any kinds, you know, they can first of all shoot amphibious tanks. So like if it's tanks, that's just not going to work if you got subs there. You know, so oftentimes you don't see things like tanks for that reason. But yeah, just being able to spot what comes through, if anything, and getting that heads up is very important. Let's see, what are you? Okay, your energy is, yeah, in such bad shape. It looks like you're decided to add on some solars. A couple solars, you know, if it's really important, so I would say yeah, good idea. Tide is going to be better for this. They're just much more efficient than solar, especially on this map. Like solar is just extremely inefficient, with especially T1s. So you know, be mindful of that. You know, only build what you need and then get rid of them. You know, when you don't need them, is always the play. Yep. But yeah, I'm glad you're adding on those wins. It looks like you're getting some of these converters to go with it. But yeah. I'm just trying to think of ways where you can like figure out what this player's doing, because this is so important. I mean, obviously they have up here, you know, this is all theirs, and maybe there's a way you can contest this as well. But I think to do that, you need something more than just T1 ships. You know, either with T2 ships or hovercraft or you know, aircraft or you know, some other T2 like amphibious unit would be able to do it, but as it is kind of hard to assault that. And getting hovercrafts up here, you know, assuming that these dots are like at the very least light laser towers and stuff like that, then it's, you know, it's not going to work out as well as you might hope. So yeah, it's not something you can really contest at this point. But I'm glad that you got things like, you know, this radar to check it out. You got this you know, torpedo launcher in case, you know, they try to send stuff down here. There's at least something to deter them. But yeah, given all your metal, I wouldn't mind if you like teched up C at this point. And I would suggest teching C up instead of lands, because ideally you would get a T2 unit, you'd buy a T2 unit from either the back guy or you know, one of these spots here. You could definitely buy it from green right now and get your lands mexes upgraded at the very least. And then, you know, that'll just give you more metal to put into more T2 ships and stuff. But yeah, with those T2 ships, you could upgrade your sea mexes. You could start getting things like missile cruisers, battleships, eventually a flagship, and those are all great options for barraging these players back here. Um, but yeah, since there is an air player, and there pretty much always is on this map, you pretty much what I would suggest is asking if the air player can scout, because air scouting is so important. And even if the scout dies, it's still important to try to see something. Any information is better than no information at all. And even just like sending a scout in like this direction, even if there is a fighter or something that gets killed off, you know, um, you don't do it with just one scout. You do it with like maybe a few. But yeah, information is just so important. I mean, it looks like they did get information from these other players. It's just unfortunate they didn't get it from this player. Because yeah, very important to know what they're doing. At this point, like since I haven't seen a shipyard, I haven't seen anything to contest water. I would be planning for a potential like hovercraft invasion or something like that, or maybe it's like T2, like it could be like platypus or duck. It could be like T2 tanks, going through the water, or it could be all the way to T3, marauders or something like that. So there's just a lot to think about with that. Um, yeah, I'm just seeing your resources go up a lot here, whereas they could be utilized right now. Either to better your economy by buying a T2 guy, or better in your economy with a T2 shipyard, um, or just like planning to because staying on T1 economy is just not going to be enough here eventually, and you're given so much freedom at this point that you should be doing something like that. But yeah, I'm glad you're doing little things like this with your I almost said cruisers again. Destroyers, you get the commander. Shooting at all the stuff. Okay, so you did get a radar up here too. I don't know if maybe I just missed it earlier. I'm not 100% actually. Nice little bombing run from Teal. Yeah, there's a lot of Mausers out here to deny your destroyers. Really only so much you can do with them. So at this point, I would pull them back just because these are basically going to die if they stay here. Oh, you're going for the lab. I suppose that's useful. But yeah, important to get out there as soon as you can. It looks like yeah, that's exactly what you do. So yeah, Mausers are going to be really annoying for that. By the way, and I know this is just an APM thing, generally, but like it is just one shot to kill the mechs here. So you like instead of attacking here and then looking away, I would just attack and then move on. Instead of sitting there and shooting it, you're basically shooting at nothing right now, guaranteed. Especially since there's no dot there. But yeah, there is a dot here, so you go after that one. Right, you take it out. But yeah, same thing here. You destroy it, but it's a one shot to kill it from most things. So it's just kind of you're just taking some extra damage there. Okay, so here's finally a scout. Okay, and I don't know if you're looking in this spot, but anytime that you gain information over here, the better. So trying to be mindful of that and checking over here. Like maybe you didn't see your ally scout for you, or anything like that. But just knowing what's going on is very important. Very, very, very important. So you see a bunch of, you see that they're on T2. You see that they have some fusions already. So they've basically been planning for something. But even more importantly, you start seeing some platypus. This is what you want to look for. So you know that they're going to attempt a platypus raid somewhere at some point. So it's going to be important that you respond to that. But yeah, meanwhile here it looks like you're still kind of... Oh no, you did get a T2 lab. Yeah. So there's two things here. First of all, you don't really need this. So I mean, you could have reclaimed it, but obviously you had a bunch of metal already. So it wouldn't have actually made sense to reclaim it while you built this lab. But basically, this point in the game, You should not be building a lab before your mexes are upgraded. You should be buying a guy from someone. Just send them like 470-ish metal. Ask for a T2. Um, most players understand that that's, a normal thing to do, so that you can upgrade your stuff. And, as your metal is starting to pull, would be a great time to do it. As you decided to stop building ships, as you started adding on some of this winds, like that's when you could have done it for sure. So you pay them, you get them to walk over. Um, if you're really smart, you also ask for a transport, and you transport the T2, from whoever gives it to you, all the way over to your base, so it gets there much faster. Upgrade your mexes, place down a fusion, and then put down a T2 lab. And doing it in that order, because in that order is important, because first and foremost, upgrading the mexes is very important. That's like way more economy. Each mex upgraded is 4 times more metal per second. So at the very least, getting these 3 mexes upgraded. And I usually would recommend a fusion depending on how much wind you have banked up at that time. And I'd say this isn't quite enough. Well, I mean, it's a reasonable amount of wind, but it's not like a shit ton or anything like that. So you probably still need a fusion at some point, before going, into T2. But it kind of depends on what units you make out of T2. Obviously some of them are much more expensive, like mammoths, but obviously you probably wouldn't be building mammoths at this spot. But yeah, just to talk about all that in general. If you're getting a T2 lab to get a construction bot at this, like, the only time you should really ever do that is if you're the player that's designated for that. Like this player usually is, this player usually is, and this player usually is. One of the back two is air, and then the other one goes hard into like eco, generally speaking. And there is a timing where you could potentially buy a T2 guy from them, but their whole thing is they're trying to, they want to eat the lab, they want to reclaim it so that they can put that metal into a faster economy. So that's what this player did, and that's why they don't have a lab. What was I gonna say? But yeah, very very important for you to either get a T2 shipyard or buy a con. I think the shipyard is important, and upgrading these mechs is important, but if they already have T2 on the lands, I would just get it from them to get your land mexes right away. That way you're not spending so much on a lab. And if you do it like quickly enough, it would you shouldn't have a big stockpile of metal, and then it makes more sense to reclaim this T2 lab. Yeah, you can even reclaim this as well. Basically, if you're not going to use it, reclaim it. Spend that metal on something else ASAP. Very important. Probably the biggest takeaway that I've found so far, for sure. So I'm definitely trying to highlight it a bit. All right, let's move on from all that. Hopefully I explained that well enough. Stealth. Oh shoot. Yep, stealth tanks right there. Looks like they decided to go straight to the back line. Luckily, the tech guy back here has a tracer already, so that's why you guys can see this. In case you don't know, when you start seeing this, your units will not automatically fire on this, unless they're spotted like that. You have to like manually attack that location, and I think that's what this player's doing. So they're dealing with it. Oh, okay. So here comes the platypus. But yeah, I'm pretty certain at this point that you didn't see this beforehand, so I'm gonna put it on your camera to see if you spot it.
Detected.
Very important. This whole time, your lane guy back here has been left alone.
Aircraft spotted.
And so that basically means you need to like constantly check to see what they're doing. Like I was saying before. Unfortunately, you haven't noticed yet. Okay, so now you see it. Let's see how you respond. Okay, you go with pyros. Actually, I'm not even sure how that works out, but I feel like pyros would be okay here, or fiends rather. Sorry, that's the old name for them. Upgrading the mechs. Yep. Yeah, unfortunately, wind died down also. Yeah, I wouldn't bother trying to start this right now, because you got some problems. Put the spec on your view. Oops. Wait. Come on. Is that okay? Sorry, it gets that's you know, bugs out a little bit sometimes. You try to self-detonate. I mean, I don't know if it's really worth self-detonating the shipyard because you kind of want the wreck, but yeah, trying to damage the stuff that's coming in. And unfortunately, you take a lot of damage here. EMPs come in to try to save the day. Yeah, okay, so now that that's all said and done, I'll try to give you some options of, you know, I mean, obviously I already talked about, you know, trying to be aware of that stuff, trying to gain information beforehand, before something like this happens. But say you were unable and that just totally surprises you. So as soon as you see him, and ideally, of course, since you don't know what this guy's doing, you want to consistently check for stuff like that, right? Um, so some of the things that you could do here is put up some pop-up turrets. Do rather well against that kind of stuff. Um, you know, I would just place them sporadically, like, you know, every so often down the coast. When I say pop-up turrets, I mean the was it the Pitbull and the Scorpion? I think for core it's the Scorpion, I believe. Where is the builder? Well, I'll just click on this guy's builder. Yeah, so for Armada it's Pitbull, and for Cortex it's Scorpion. And the Scorpion shoots missiles, and the Pitbull shoots a Gauss cannon. It's, you know, but they're pretty similar in nature. You also have the Rattlesnake and the I forget what the Cortex version is called. But that would be just helpful to have something here, you know. And if you get surprised by something, you basically want to stop everything you're doing and put all the metal, all the build power that you have into building the thing that's going to help stop that. You know, for example, let's say it was bombers instead. You know, and you like desperately need a you know, some anti-air. You know, then you could, I mean, if it's this late in the game, I wouldn't be recommending like a Thistle or something like that. You know, you probably want a T2, or at the very least a chainsaw, or I forget what the Cortex one is. I have to get a builder. Gosh, it's kind of hard because you just got, you know, lost everything, so I don't have anything to click on. So I forget what the Cortex version of the chainsaw is, but I know it's a pop-up. You know, but the whole point is anyway to you know, try to put everything into it so you build it extremely quickly, and so that it's hopefully done by the time the bombers get there. So the same thing with this. You know, since you don't have some pit bulls and stuff here, or defenses there, and your build power is mainly over here, you might want to put your you know, like let's say, actually I think your build power was here and here, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, I would maybe put a few pit bulls like just in this general region, or maybe like one here, one there, type of thing, and just focus all the build power in the area on those pit bulls. You can also move your commander, you know, over to greet them and degun what you can. And you want to do that away from your base in case the commander dies, but it is a reasonable thing. You know, it's much better to lose your commander than it is to lose your base. You know, so this sets you back significantly. But yeah, that information is just so important. And now there's just like a lot of these platypus running around. Platypi, I think, is that what it is for plural? But put it back on your view. So yeah, that's quite unfortunate. Um, you know, again, it could have been avoided if you saw it coming and prepared for it. Um, you know, and just for the record, like pit bulls do help against marauders too. So, you know, it's a reasonable thing to build after a point. Like if you realize that they're just teching in, they're not playing C. And of course, the other thing that you could possibly do is just have ships. Like if you were just massing up frigates. But they could potentially outmaneuver and outrun the frigates, so, you know, it's kind of hard like that too. Luckily, purple sets up this nice line for you. So it's going to be a bit harder for orange to do much with that. Let's see how the rebuilding efforts go. So you get out of Twitcher. Looks like, okay, so since you lost your fusion and you lost your wind, it does make sense to build some solar here. I wouldn't go for this mini solar though. I would instead actually just build like maybe this row and then build on advanced solar. Just because advanced solar is actually I really need to break all that down for build power. I think advanced solar might not be efficient with time, like build time. So it might be better to go solar, but I guess for me I'm just thinking in terms of metal cost, you know, it's better for advanced solar of course. But yeah, good. So very importantly, after something like this happens, adding on build power is very, very vital. But of course also fixing your energy needs. You know, and taking the mexes back when you can and all that, so. Yeah, luckily you still have your T2 lab. Let's see, where are these fiends going? Are you going to the front? Oh, okay. I mean, I guess you're trying to assist the front. I would say don't worry about that. That's just metal that's basically going to be peanuts in the grand scheme of the battle over there. I would instead prioritize rebuilding this. You know, getting more things like twitchers to help build with your constructor. You know, and thinking of ways to contest this again. And yeah, I was just gonna say, like, eventually getting the, you know, your energy is gonna be a big issue for a minute, so getting that fusion is very important too. Okay, advanced radar. Yeah, so now you can see a few more of them. You still got a lot here. That's a lot of platypi. Wow, orange even has some hounds at the front here, so they're doing two things at once here. Red Marauders come in. Looks like they're mostly handled. EMP bombers are just so good. I'm not sure if this plays with the you know, the changes for EMP bomber, but that's usually what I see nowadays. You know, it's just a tweaked def that changes the EMP so they're not as strong. Alright, so going straight to Aphis. Yeah, I mean, I suppose it's kind of like you have to greed to get back in the game. I guess the other way to think about it is, like, you know, so I guess your two options here are basically A, greed so that you can contest orange a lot better. You know, and do something risky like that, which basically makes this much more vulnerable. So if he comes in again, now you're, you know, it might be a problem. But as it is, they've been doing a lot of units at the front, so, you know, this is a reasonable option here. The other option is to defend, you know, based on, you know, knowing that orange could come in again. And just, like, not worry about late game, just trying not to die so that you help hold this front here so that the backline players are safer. That kind of play should be decided by how your team's doing. If your team's doing well, then you know that all you have to do is help defend and prevent them from leaking through your base into the back line and stuff. If the team isn't doing so well, then yeah, it's kind of like, well, you know, if your team's going to lose anyways, you might as well greed and see if you can maybe get back into contesting orange a little bit. Given this situation, You know, it's kind of hard to tell. Like that's definitely something that takes a lot of experience to figure out. You know, and I'd say given the fronts here, like this looks pretty even. It looks like, you know, blue and, you know, your team is not doing as well as the other, like the other team has more units, so they have more push potential. Green has a lot of the sea. He's pushing out right now. Yeah, they must have won C here, so they're just kind of, I guess, floating around some units. I'm not 100% sure. I wasn't really watching them, obviously. But yeah, it's, you know, this situation, you know, it's like you can't really tell. You know, it's not very clear. You know, so that gets challenging. Oof. Yeah, so lots of stuff dead here from that commander and stuff, so especially bad. Now purple has to come back. He was stationed here with his units to help protect you, but that protection's gone now. So yeah, I don't know. I don't mind you doing this. It's just a hard spot if orange decides to come in again. Now of course these Razorbacks will definitely help you out, so it's definitely a very helpful thing. But yeah, I think they were pushing rather well before all that happened, so like, you know, it looks maybe better for the, you know, defending and stuff. Well, okay, I'm wondering if orange is coming back in here now. Mostly cruisers, or no, destroyers. I thought these were. Oh, they look bigger for a second, I guess. Well, it's kind of a funny situation. The anti-air just killing this fighter screen out here. Okay, so this is nice. Okay, blue doing a nice job with the EMP bombers. Let's see, I just want to watch this for a second, see how this goes. Okay, yeah. One more. There it is. All right. So that's orange. You know, is now in ruins, just like you. So it's totally even. Obviously, they have more power at the sea right now. So, but yeah, that definitely puts you in a much better spot. I'm not sure why. Did you just think that this was done? Maybe. That definitely happens with me sometimes. Finish the Aphis. You're not even using these yet. Alright, there we go. Yeah, just a little bit premature is all. But yeah, setting stuff up like that because, you know, now because you need to move your constructor is kind of nice. So yeah, you're getting some anti-air, reasonable. Yeah, considering that bombing just happens and your team kind of expended all their fighters, makes sense to do stuff like that. Yeah, and your ally has you covered with these Razorbacks for now. So yeah, it is smarter to go anti-air here. Yeah, I mean, I'd say in this spot, I guess for me personally, I would go, like, you know, after I recover my economy a bit, I would actually just go only hovercraft. I would actually just put down like 3 hovercraft plants, you know, get a bunch of construction turrets behind it, and just crank out a lot of hovercraft. You know, and maybe like position the hovercraft so they're like back here or something, so they aren't spotted by the orange units out here. I don't know if there's like, what's it called? I don't know if there's a carrier or something like that with this group. Probably not because they're platypus, right? I just know that there are some ships out here. Okay, you go duck. Okay, I didn't notice that you're building ducks. My apologies. That's a reasonable thing here too. It's just I don't think the ducks can attack the platypus. Yeah, it's nice to have them because obviously they can actually shoot underwater, so being able to take out some of this stuff is quite nice. And they're really strong at it too, so duck is a good choice. But yeah, I'm glad you're figuring it out. Tiny little run by here from the back player, and there's a resign. All right. So yeah, I mean, I guess all in all, like, you know, um, this I guess yeah. To summarize, I would say that there were times that you were stalling on energy, and I think that it would be more important to fix that up ASAP instead of doing other things. Like there was a time when it was low and you're trying to grab this max, and you could have just built like a couple of tides here or a couple of wind turbines. Um, Having the builders come out, like a couple more builders, so that you can actually build this up a lot faster, I think would be useful. Um, I don't mind the play that, the fact that you got a T1 lab, got a couple of constructors and started a wind farm out here. I think that was useful. I think it was a little bit late though. Um, it's just you were in energy troubles for a while, and I guess to me it's the sort of thing where it's like, yeah, plan to do something like that with the lab and getting the wind farm. But if you need energy, you need energy, and you don't want to wait for a lab. You don't want to wait for the construction turret. Use your commander to place down, like a dozen wins or whatever it takes to get you back on track. Because as soon as that gets too low, that becomes a limiting factor, and your metal starts rising. And the whole idea is trying to spend that metal ASAP so that you can greed for more economy or get more ships out or whatever you're trying to do goes faster with that in mind. Um, so yeah, then after that, the absolute biggest thing in my mind in this game is the fact that you built a T2 lab for a T2 constructor and it got the mexes and stuff. And you kind of waited a while to do that, and I feel like you could have way sooner. You could have bought a T2 from one of these guys. Sorry, not purple because they're frontline. They probably wouldn't have it at the time. But I'm pretty sure green had theirs first. Obviously, there's a T3 lab, not a T2 at this point, but yeah, they definitely had a T2 lab. And as soon as you see someone have a T2 lab, you can just ask them to buy one. In which case you just send them the metal. There's three icons. In case you don't know, there's three icons back here, and you can send metal that way, and then they can send a unit with a different button over there. Um, and if you're really smart about it, you could ask for a transport to transport them all the way over here because it is kind of a distance to be able to upgrade these faster. Um, but yeah, then the other big thing is, as soon as you notice that you're not being contested on water, you know, just make a mental note of this player has to be doing something. And most of the case, or most of the time, that player is going to be sending some kind of attack on you. They're not going to be doing stuff like helping the front. They want to hurt you to win the lane so that your area becomes an easier spot to assault in the future. And that's a spot that's directly in front of the back line here. So, your ultimate job is to protect these guys, and potentially if you're capable to also send something down here eventually. Ducks in the end here, great idea, very good. Um, your little assaults down here with your destroyers and actually it was mostly the uh, yeah, the destroyers. I don't know why I was blanking on that, but yeah, the destroyers have like some extra range, and so taking out the lab that you did, taking out the mexes, very good. Um, but yeah, your main concern should be just like checking out over here, asking your air player to scout it if you can. Otherwise, trying to scout yourself with something. It could be like just a couple of hovercraft or something. Um, in which case you could potentially, instead of getting that like bot lab right away, you could put down a hovercraft plants, get a couple of those like scout hovercrafts, like the really cheap stuff, right? Um, and then you just reclaim the lab, and with that money from the lab, you put down a T1 lab after that to start on, your T1 stuff back here. And that way you just have a couple of hovercraft to try to get that information. And obviously that kind of play will set you back just a little bit, but just that information is that important. No, otherwise you could just put down an air lab instead and do it with an air scout. It really depends on what you think they have for anti-air. Um, if you do it with air, I would not suggest going in this angle because usually there is an anti-air up here pretty early. I would maybe come in from the bottom here or from the side here and then swing in to see what's up. Yeah, information is super important. Um, but yeah, just as soon as you start running out of metals, start thinking about things that you can reclaim. Like that bot lab here was sitting there for a long time, not doing anything. The shipyard wasn't really doing anything for a while either. And to some degree it makes sense to keep the shipyard because it's like, well, what if they do something? You kind of want to be able to make ships quickly if necessary. Um, but yeah, it's like as soon as it gets late enough where T2 is going to be out, it's sort of like it doesn't make as much sense to keep the T1 shipyard unless you're, because you're not going to, like basically if you're not constantly producing ships out of it, you can't really deal with a T2 threat. Like, I guess what I'm saying is if T2 comes in like they did, like there's no chance for you to build ships fast enough to deal with all that. Um, so it's like you might as well just get rid of it if you're not gonna to use it in that case. Same with the wind turbine, or not, sorry, not the wind turbines, the solar collectors. I noticed also that you had like 3 or 4 sitting here before your base died. And, after you have a fusion, for sure you do not need solar collectors ever. They're just like a waste of metal. And putting that metal into your fusion, or taking that metal and putting it into units or into your APHIS or whatever it is going to be a much better use for it. Because, yeah, at this point, 20 energy per second is nothing. So there's no reason to have it. But 150 metal is reason. It's not. It's much more significant than that 20 energy a second is what I'm trying to say. Um, but yeah, just like trying to figure out what this player's doing is the main goal in this kind of scenario. Um, or trying to figure out how can you punish what they're doing is also a reasonable, like a secondary goal. First you need to figure out what they're doing so that you can like respond to what they're doing. But then, after you feel good about that, you can figure out like how do I punish them for doing this. Um, I don't know how much anti-air they had, but that could have been a potential thing to do. That sounds strange in this position, but ultimately, um, I think a lot of players think of these positions as like set in stone. This is what you do, which just isn't the case. It's kind of like any player can play anything from any position, but obviously there's certain things like, um, if you're the frontline player, you shouldn't go fast T2 because obviously, someone needs to defend the fronts, and you're the one that's closest, so you should be doing it. It just makes sense. There's things like that, but there is no like set in stone. You have to play this way. Just like Orange did not play C, and it's sort of like in a way your position then needs to adapt to that fact and find ways to be a nuisance to that to the play that they actually do. Anyways, I hope that all makes sense. Feel free to ask questions, of course, and thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.